I don't know about you, but there used to be a time in my life where I would read a self-improvement book, a book that I heard would change my life, that it had so much wisdom inside of it, so much good advice that I would not be myself anymore. I would be a better version of myself. And so I would order a hard copy and I would start reading it. I'd say back then it would usually take me like about a month or two to finish a book. While I'm reading it, I'm like, man, this has got some like really good stuff in it, like actual like advice that I can implement into my life. And so by the time I finished it, after the 2 to 3 months of reading it, I would read the final page, I would close the book, and I would think, what the heck did I just read? I couldn't remember anything about the book that I just read. Like seriously, I couldn't remember one single thing, one single chapter name. I couldn't remember one rule that they had. I couldn't remember anything about the book. The only thing I could remember was like, it was a self-improvement book that did offer pieces of advice and wisdom, but I just can't remember anything. And at that point I would be like, well, I'm not gonna read it again because it took me like 3 months to read. So I'll get to it later in life. And I put it up on my shelf. And you and I both know that I never get back to it once I put it back on that shelf. And so I did this with multiple books, not just one, but probably like 10 to 15 books. And I remember thinking, one, I'm kind of wasting money by not getting anything out of these books, right? And then two, I'm also kind of wasting my time because I'm not learning anything from these books. I'm not gaining anything from these books. I'm just wasting away time that's not going to benefit me in any way if I'm not learning anything. And so I knew I needed to make a change. I needed to start remembering what I read. And I didn't know exactly how to quite do this. And I did research online. I watched videos, people giving advice, but they didn't really help the situation at all. But little by little, I started to learn what worked for me to remember things and what didn't work for me. And so with all that being said, I have 4 things that will help you to remember everything that you read. The first thing is to make the reading session fun. The second thing is to write down what's valuable. The third thing is to practice what you learn. And the fourth thing is to reread what you underlined in the book / what you wrote down in your notebook. If you implement these 4 things into your reading session, I promise you that you will remember everything that you read. So number 1 is to make the reading session fun. If you are new to reading, or if you struggle to read, if you find it boring, I used to find it boring as well. But if you right now are struggling to sit down for a certain amount of time to read, and you find it boring when you read, or you start falling asleep when you read, then you need to make it fun. You need to make it something that you look forward to. You need to make the shift from having the reading session to be not something that you have to go to, but something that pulls you in. There's a difference. Something that you are naturally drawn to, instead of something that you feel like gets in the way of your life that you have to do, even though you aren't finding it fun at all. You need to make that shift. So what I did to make that shift, to make my reading sessions fun, which I still do because it's just fun, I will get nice and cozy inside of my bed and I will read. So the time of day that you read doesn't matter at all. It just matters if you read. I'm sure there's some benefits that if you read right before bed, or if you read first thing in the morning, that it might help blah 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 blah. I don't really care. Just as long as you are reading, that's all that matters. But I don't know a single person who doesn't like being all cozy and wrapped up in blankets in their bed. Everybody loves to do that. So that's what I'll do. I'll get under my covers, I'll start reading the book, and that just sets a calming atmosphere around me. And it takes me away from like wanting to be on social media, or it takes me away from just overthinking about stuff in my life. It just brings me into a confined place where it's just me and the book that I'm reading. I also get a little snack. So your snack can vary. It doesn't matter what snack it is. But what I like to do is I like to keep it somewhat healthy. I like to eat some dark chocolate when I'm reading. And before someone goes off saying that it's candy, it's got sugar in it, blah, 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 it's bad for you, dark chocolate is actually really good for you. Like, there are lots of statistics that show that having dark chocolate is something that will benefit you, your body and your brain. Obviously not too much, but if you have some of it, is actually pretty good. And so that's what I like to eat. I like to keep it somewhat healthy, but it's something that makes me read longer while I'm reading. It's something that rejuvenates my energy. When I'm reading and I start to feel a little tired, then I will take a bite of the dark chocolate and then I'll get a new burst of energy and then I'll keep reading. And that's what keeps me reading longer. The dark chocolate incentivizes me to read as well because it's part of the reading experience. And then also what I used to do is I would think I have to read for at least like 45 minutes straight. And if I don't, then the reading session wasn't complete. If you are new to reading and like I said, you're still finding it kind of boring to do, and it feels more like an obligation rather than something that you actually enjoy, then you need to break that and not have a time to read. The time needs to be on your hands. So right now, you need to read until you don't want to read anymore. So one day you're reading a book and you're finding it really boring, and you've read maybe a paragraph or two, and you're like, okay, I'm not really into it right now. That's perfectly fine. Close the book, push it off to the side, reading session is over, go do what you want. The next day, and this is the interesting thing about books, is that one day it could be really boring, and then the next day on the next page, all of a sudden, it just grabs your attention out of nowhere, and you are invested, and you find yourself reading 1, 2, 5, 10 pages straight, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just got through a chapter. For someone who's starting to read, that is a huge achievement. So read however much you want. One day it might be, like I said, a paragraph or two, and then another day you might get through a whole chapter. Whatever you want. We're trying to develop the habit of having a reading session every single day. And right now, you need to do it on your own terms. Again, the reading sessions should be something that you look forward to, not something that you dread every single day. If it's something you dread, you should not be doing it. You shouldn't be doing anything that you dread. You should only be doing the things that you look forward to. So make the reading sessions fun. Tip number 2 is to write down what's valuable. When you do this, get a pen and a notebook. Do not, for the love of God, do not write it down on your phone. Don't go to your notes. Please don't be that person that's like,
oh, well, typing it down on my phone is easier because I can just open the notes tab and I can just type it in automatically because I'm faster at typing than I am at writing. And it's honestly kind of a hassle to get a pen and a notepad. You have to write down everything. And I don't have the best handwriting, so it just doesn't seem to come out the best.
bro, shut up. Shut up. Oh, God, we're back. Don't type it on your notes. That is such a lazy thing to do. I don't know why. I know there are studies proving this. I can't name any specifically, but I know for a fact that when you take the time to write down with a pen and paper information, you will remember it a lot better than typing it on your phone. Trust me, not only do the stats say that, but from my personal experience, this is the case. Please write it down. It's not that hard. Once you start doing the habit of that, it will become second nature. And just don't put your phone to the side. This is a reading session. You're not supposed to have your phone involved at all. So put the phone to the side, write down with a pen and paper what is valuable. When you are writing down what's valuable, what I would do, which is a mistake that a lot of people do, is I would write down things from the book word for word in my notes. I would write down paragraphs word for word. If the author has a specific quote that stands out, I would write down the quote in big caps on my paper. This is not the right way to write down notes. This is what I did, and like I said, everybody does this. This will not help you remember what you are reading. Instead, what you need to do is you need to take what is valuable inside the book and reword it onto your page. Deliver the same message, but write it down in your own language. Think of it. The author is probably smarter and more sophisticated than you, right? You and me are not the most intellectual beings, right? We have simpler language than the author. So write it down in your own language, because when you do this, you are making your notes more personal. They are literally coming from your brain. Think of it as you are being inspired by what the author wrote, and you are delivering the same message, but it's in your own terms. It's in your own language. It's more personal. It's you. Do not quote. You can paraphrase. You can rewrite it, because that will help you remember a lot better. What you can do in addition to that is you can underline in your book. So the parts that you are wanting to rewrite into your notebook, underline that part so that if in the future you are rereading your notes and you see one of your notes and you get kind of confused by it, you can just go to the page and see what you underlined, and you can reread that if you need to. Tip number 3, and this is the most important tip out of all of them, to remember what you read. Tip number 3 is to practice what you learn. So when you are done with the reading session, when you have rewrote what is valuable inside your notebook, not your phone, when you have done that and when the reading session is over, then you need to make an effort to practice what you have learned. So it depends on what you are reading, obviously, but I'll just give you an example from my experience. I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. A great book. It's very old, but its lessons still live on in today's world. I read that book, and it's about how to win friends and influence people. It's about how to become a better socializer. When I would read that book, I would, write down what I thought was valuable. And once the reading session was over, I would implement what I learned into the day. So when I was reading that book, I would read it in the morning before I would go to work. And once I finished it, I would look at while I'm getting ready for work. When I'm about to leave, I would reread my notes and see what was the thing that stood out to me that day. And so for one of his tips, he has just smile more. And so when I went to work, what did I do? I practiced smiling a lot more. I swear to God, more people were approaching me that day, and I was better at socializing. Simple things like that, implemented into your life. And this is a great thing to do if you're about to go to work. Read it before you go to work so that it is very fresh in your mind, and then implement it into your work. And again, it depends on the book that you're reading, but it's the same principle. Apply it to your life. If you're reading a book dealing with socializing and you finish, go to the mall or go to the grocery store and practice what you learn. I had to do that as well, and it is very, very awkward, but it helps you become more confident in your socializing skills. And like I said, this is the most important tip out of all of these, is to practice what you learn. Because this is literally you given the instructions on what to do, and then you actually implementing them and putting effort into your life. This is learning at its finest. It's trial and error. It's by actually putting myself out there. It's about actually taking action. So I cannot stress it enough. Practice what you learn. And so for my last tip, trick,
I'm about to reach in my bag, bro.
my last tip is to reread what you underlined / what is in your notepad. So once you finish your book, you will move on to another book and you move on to different phases in life. But it is important to still re-implement what you have learned in this one book. So every once in a while, just go to that notebook or go to that book and you can reread. Just go to a random page and just reread something that you underlined, or if you're looking in your notebook, just go to a random page in your notebook and just reread what you wrote down in your own words. This will actively recall a whole bunch of other rules and memories from that book, again, because you made it so personal. So you can do this every once in a while, like I said, or what is even better is if you catch yourself falling behind in a specific part of your life. So again, if it's you're finding yourself being worse at socializing, or if you are falling behind in your habits. If you're falling behind in socializing, then reread parts of How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you're falling behind in parts of your habits, then reread parts of Atomic Habits. If you catch yourself falling behind in certain parts of your life, that is a really good sign that you are aware of yourself and you are aware of what you have learned, the book that you read in the past. So reread what you underline / what you wrote down in your notebook. Again, if you implement these 4 simple things into your life, I promise you, you will remember everything that you read. And when I say that you will remember everything that you read, I'm not talking about how you will remember specific quotes from the author and you'll become like one of those like intellectual people who can just recall quotes on the top of their head. That doesn't matter. You can remember all the words that you want, but if they have no meaning to you, then it is literally empty words. What I'm talking about is that you will remember the meaning of everything that you read, and you will know when to implement it into your life. That is true learning, and that is the point of reading. If you like this video, then make sure to like and subscribe and do all that shit because it helps me out so much. My name is Matthew, and I will see you later.